Today is day 3 of the Karen Read trial. I'm going to give you my daily recap. The firefighter-paramedic that was on the stand at the end of the day yesterday, Daniel Whiteley, is back today, and he is going to be cross-examined by David Yannetti. He says that Karen was not cooperating with giving a urine sample, and then there's a very awkward moment, I would say, where I think Yannetti was trying to add some shock factor to it. He says, "Did you know that the defendant was on her period and did not have a tampon?" And I was kind of like, what? Why did we have to bring that up? And he says that he knew that she was on her period. Eventually, she did give a sample. Just to refresh your memory, this is when she was being sectioned. He is the EMT that drove her to the Good Samaritan Hospital and was with her, that took her down to the psych ward to be evaluated. She was asking him if he had survived. He had been in the snow for many hours, and she's trying to get answers from him and all of the nurses at the hospital. There's a brief redirect, and then he's done for the day, and Brennan plays another ID documentary clip, which when this came out, I could just imagine Hank Brennan at home, oh my God, watching this, foaming at the mouth, these clips do not look good for Karen. When I was watching this documentary myself, I was invited to the premiere. I agreed. I did not think that she said things that made herself look good. She does sound snarky. She doesn't sound like she's grieving. She just sounds like she's fighting for her life. And she's not showing any remorse for the death of John O'Keefe, which is the whole reason that we're all here. We get that you're on trial, but we all want answers for John. So this next clip is actually, it's from the documentary. It's when she's kind of eyes bulging out of her head a little bit. I put in my notes that Karen looks a little wacky, and says that his mother leaned over the counter and it looked like he'd been hit by a car. This is a clip that Hank Brennan wanted to play yesterday, but Judge Bev gave him the answer that he was allowed to play it today, and so it's kind of out of order, but this is what he's trying to use to tie together the testimony from Peggy O'Keefe. I also forgot to mention that we have a new camera angle on Law and Crime Network. That's where I watch. Court TV, I think, had this angle yesterday, but we have a dual screen and we get to watch the defendant Karen Read all day along with the witness. The next witness for the day is the general manager of CF McCarthy's. I believe her name is Jean something. And this is very brief. It moves super quick. Brennan is asking her about the surveillance video and that they own their own surveillance. She's the one who was there when the two troopers came in to request the surveillance footage. Yuri Buchanan was one of the troopers that downloaded the tape. And then they introduced that surveillance from the bar CF McCarthy's into evidence. There's no further questions, no cross-exam. Bridget Meehan is next. She's the owner and manager of the Waterfall Bar in Canton, and they do the same thing. They introduce the surveillance video as evidence then. The next witness for the day is a friend of John O'Keefe. His name is Michael Camerano, and he is the friend who was with John at CF McCarthy's. He has a daughter and a son that are the same age as John O'Keefe's niece and nephew, and they're very close friends, and therefore the two of them have been friends. He's known John since 2013, I believe he said, when he met John at one of John's sister's rallies. He went to John's house originally that evening on January 28th to celebrate the fact that both of the daughters got into this new school that they were going to be starting. The two girls wanted to celebrate and hang out, and then the parents, the dads, John O'Keefe and Michael Camerano, they went out to CF McCarthy's together to have a few drinks. After a while, Karen met them there. She drove herself, and then Michael actually had to leave early because his son was over at a different friend's house and was playing hockey in the backyard and got hit with a hockey stick in the tooth and lost his tooth. So John was relying then on Karen Read to be his ride. So Michael had to leave. He said that he woke up he did pick up his daughter at John's house that evening after he got his son too. He woke up the next morning to some missed calls, and He got in his car immediately, drove to John's house. He says it was between 5 and 6 a.m. He didn't really have a plan, but he knew that John's niece was home alone and he wanted to get to her. And then Yannetti is going to do the cross-examination. Michael Camerano is very emotional on the stand. This is really sad for him to relive these moments with his best friend passing away. I'm sure he feels, I would if I were him, a little bit of guilt leaving that evening early and then hearing what happened to your friend. So Yannetti is doing the cross-exam. He's being really soft-spoken, the most soft-spoken that we've seen him. He usually comes out pretty hot, and he's being very sensitive. He says he knew that Karen and John had a good relationship. They bickered like normal couples. John mentioned that he was upset that day because Karen hired a plumber for some work to be done in her house, and he was upset about that because he said he could help with the work, and then that's the end of his testimony. It's right before 11 at this point, and Hank Brennan recalls Nicholas Guarino back up to the stand to resume his testimony. A lot of people have been mentioning that he's limping, and I'm not sure what happened to him, but Bev gives him the option to either sit or stand during his testimony. So I don't know what happened, but he's the state trooper that works in the DA's office, and he did all the Celebrate extractions off of many people's phones involved, including John, Karen, Jen McCabe. There's a long list of evidence that is entered at this point. He reviews call logs between John and Karen. He also reviews text message logs, call logs between John and Jen McCabe for January 29th. There's also a group text between Karen Reed, Ingrid Curtis, and Bill Curtis. And at this point, like, it was very tedious. I think the jury was kind of bored, but all of this gets entered into evidence. And then we get into seeing some of the text messages being read by Nicholas Guarino. The Commonwealth had prepared a PowerPoint presentation for them to be read very easily, and they're entered into evidence. A lot of the text messages from earlier in the day on January 28th are Karen and John kind of, I would say, having issues over the fact that Karen spoils the kids and John doesn't like that. I think that causes them a lot of tension, and maybe the only tension in their relationship. Lots of her texts are saying, I'm not a perfect parent, I'm trying. And like I said, Guarino is reading all of these texts. In the meantime, she is also calling him and he's rejecting her phone call. He is sending her to voicemail. He says that his father had just arrived, and Patrick has practice until 6 p.m. He's at the doctor right now, so he's busy. He can't answer the phone. We do get some insight to what is like the temperature of their relationship, I would say, by seeing these text messages. I think she's really trying to she is really pushing hard to just go out, the two of them that evening without the kids. They need some like one-on-one time together to talk it out. She wants to have a phone conversation. He's kind of just shutting it off, like whatever, like eye roll emoji he sent a few times. This text message, what time was it sent? 2:14 p.m., so early in the day. I feel pretty shitty about how this morning went down. I know you said sorry, but it really stung, especially when I've been trying pretty hard lately. I feel like a loser turning around, just coming back after everything he said. So it just gives like a good insight to what their day was like. Saw that she had sent like this multi-sentence text. He sends a lot of like short text messages or just emojis or one-word answers. And then you see like the exact timeline of like how many times she called, when the text messages were. At one point he does say, if you want to start drinking, just go ahead now. I can't. Patrick has practice until 6 p.m. And then he ended up making plans with Mike Camerano, and Karen had the plumber coming, so she had to wait for the plumber to be done, and then she was intending to meet up with them. John was annoyed that she hired a plumber. You can see that in all the text messages. Because of the snowstorm that was coming, he was just assuming that she was going to stay over at his house the whole weekend. Karen said that she thought spending time as a family of 4 with the kids was bad for their relationship, so she didn't plan to stay the night. And then Guarino is released. He's going to be recalled again. Brennan plays another ID clip for the I think he actually plays 3 clips at this point, but one of the clips is clip 9, her talking about the drinks being weak at CF McCarthy's. John recommended that she ask for an extra shot to pour into her vodka soda. So she was explaining that it looked like she had 9 drinks, but it was a vodka soda that wasn't strong at all. So she was pouring a shot in, and she did not feel anything stronger than a buzz. So that's it for day 3. It was just a half day. We will be back tomorrow for a full day, but they are doing the viewing